Hi everybody, and welcome to A Case of the Jills. If you've been looking around at all at social media this month so far, you'll notice that it is Mental Health Awareness Month. This is kind of perfect timing for me because I was going to roll out a series of videos on mental health, and I was actually going to wait until after my finals are over, which is next week. But because this is Mental Health Awareness Month and I feel like it's really important to jump on this, I'm going to start doing the videos now. For those of you who know me, you know that, almost 2 years ago now, I decided to go back to school to get a master's degree in psychology so that I could talk about this issue that sort of plagues us in a more intelligent way and get a little more credibility behind me with some good old-fashioned studying. What's interesting is that when I was thinking about how to attack the problems that I saw ahead of me, so overtraining syndrome and hypothalamic amenorrhea and all these things like exercise addiction having to do with my experiences and the things that you all have told me about, I couldn't really decide if what I wanted to do was physiological or if it was psychological. I thought maybe I was interested in going to medical school because the process that I was trying to fix seemed to be physiological. There was something in the body that was not happening or that was going wrong, and I wanted to understand the mechanisms behind why that was and see what I could do about helping people fix it. The more I began to study and the more I began to research, something became really clear to me, and that is that this issue, I believe, truly has its roots in psychology more than physiology. While it is true that the manifestation of the problem ends up being physiological, which is to say that we see something or we experience something physically in our bodies that has gone off. But it is my belief that there is a mental component to why this kind of starts happening in the first place. Unfortunately, when you start saying sports and psychology in the same sentence, you get the idea that we're studying sports psychology. And I can promise you that we are doing nothing of the sort. Not to give away my opinions right now, I am going to do a video on the issues I have with sports psychology, or what we know about sports psychology right now. I am going to be talking about sports and I am going to be talking about psychology, but let me be clear, this is not a performance enhancing video. None of my videos are to specifically enhance your performance. My videos are here to enhance you. It's not that sports performance is not important. That's not really what I'm saying. It's just that it's not the underlying problem. The fact that you're not able to perform well in your sport is not the problem. Performing well in your sport is an outcome of having a healthy body and mind. But you not performing well is not the problem. Even though our intentions might start out that way, so some of the decisions that we make, although they're not good decisions, might start out because we're trying to achieve a certain performance level. That could be why we make some poor decisions along the way. But there is a point where the desire to perform well in the sport and be successful in the sport crosses over into something about me not valuing myself as a person unless I'm able to perform a certain way in the sport or maybe look a certain way while I'm performing in this sport. That's really the issue, that little sweet spot there, that's what I'm talking about. It's that point where you think that you're actually not good or not worthy without this. And that's why I went back to school. Had kind of this hypothesis in my mind that we really had to dig under some mental stuff to understand what was motivating our behaviors. And this is why this whole mental health issue is the reason why I don't particularly find it helpful to do videos like what I eat in a day and how many calories you should eat and et cetera anymore. I really don't think it's helpful at this point for me to start rehashing things like dietary suggestions or how many times per week you should train or how much you should decrease your training by and all this. All those things have been gone through on this channel like 100 million times, and you can go back and look at all those videos. Aside from that, there's plenty of people on YouTube who do those kinds of videos and they do it much better than me. They have more patience for that than I do. I feel like those are sort of more technical aspects of this issue and they're a little more on the surface. And that's why I think it's important to kind of dive deeper. So here's how I know it's true that just focusing on how many calories to eat, how many times per week to train, here's how I know that this isn't helpful. And this is a gross generalization, by the way, but I can tell the person who's ready to dig into those mental health issues, is ready to dig into that psychological stuff, and really get into the roots of recovery by one question. And the question is, when can I get back to training? It means that the person wants to address all those peripheral issues, the calories, the macros, the times per week, times per day stuff, but they're not willing to excavate under that to figure out the why. So let me see if I can illustrate this a little bit more clearly. So there's a whole bunch of questions that people want to ask when they go through the recovery process, right? And some of those questions are the wrong questions, and some of those questions are the right questions. You guys know that I'm really being facetious. Like, we're just having fun here. I'm not calling anyone out, and I'm not trying to be like jerky about this. I asked all of these right and wrong questions at different points along the way of my process as well. I just want to point out to you, certain questions that we ask ourselves are there for a protective measure. They mean that we don't want to get to the deeper issues, and they mean that we're being really skittish about touching those sensitive parts of ourselves. And some questions kind of show that we are ready to take on that challenge and really make lasting change in our lives. So here's an example of the wrong question versus the right question. Okay, the wrong question is, how many calories do I need to eat to get my period back? Technical question, it's easy to focus on numbers. The right question is, what led me to restrict my calories and or macronutrients in the first place? Ooh, no one wants to ask that question. Okay, number 2 of the wrong question. When can I start training again? Clock is ticking. When can I get back? The right question in this case is to ask, why am I so afraid to not be training right now? Ooh, another scary one. Question number 3, another example. How do I deal with this weight gain? And here's maybe an example of the right question to ask. Why do I view this weight gain as negative or problematic? Do you get it here? Do you get where I'm going with this? So let's talk about a few things that we actually do know about mental illness and mental health as it relates to endurance sports. We know that there are some prominent athletes who have come forward and talked about their mental health struggles. We should be endlessly grateful to them for shining the light on this. And it's people like Nikki Kimball and Rob Krar and Tyler Hamilton. It is awesome that they're so open and talk about their struggles publicly, but they are a small sliver of the people that still suffer with mental health issues in their lives as endurance athletes. And remember, I'm not talking just about elite athletes. If you watch my last video, you know I'm talking about high-performing recreational athletes or just recreational athletes in general. Some people like to use the word amateur. I hate that word because, like, people who are amateur athletes don't train for 20 hours a week, which I know some of you do. These are people who suffer with things like anxiety and depression and even OCD and eating disorders and substance abuse and other addictions. I know some of these people personally, and I've worked with some of these people, and they do not see themselves reflected out in the media. So just because there's a few awesome people who have stepped forward does not mean that it's a rare occurrence for people to have mental illness in endurance sport. A second thing that we know about endurance sport, and in this case specifically ultramarathon, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that you could probably extrapolate these results to almost any other endurance sport. And there was a study done a little while back, I think it was 2015, and I should have written down the title of the study, but I didn't. It was a study that was done to uncover psychological traits that ultramarathoners share. And the idea behind the study was to say, these are a set of traits that these people have that lead them to be able to perform in this sport. Unfortunately, so many of the participants showed evidence of exercise addiction and depression that the researchers decided that they were going to stop the initial idea behind the study and suggest that ultra runners get proactively screened for these mental health issues as a rule. Very interesting, that one. The third point I want to mention about mental health and endurance sports is that some of the traits that we actually need in order to perform well in endurance sports, like mental toughness, they call it. Oh God, I hate that term so much. Discipline, having a high pain tolerance, and even disassociation. These things can flip over in like one click, and they can actually make us do some pretty terrible things and perform some pretty lousy maladaptive behaviors and end up predisposing us to some pretty terrible conditions, including addictions. But mental toughness sounds sexy and sells running shoes. Here's why this bothers me so much. So there's this Dr. Norman Kim, he's a Yale-educated PhD, and he says that he believes that the root of a lot of these things is anxiety. I have to say that this rings true for me. I think that exercise or eating disorders or substance abuse, other addictions, I think that some of these things end up being what we turn to when we are trying to calm down another voice in our head that's telling us something that is pretty negative. I think a lot of times when we lace up our running shoes, especially the people who are watching this channel, I think it will resonate with you to say that sometimes when we lace up our shoes or we click into our bike or we jump into the pool, What's happening there is we're trying to run away from something else. We're trying to not hear something else. And if this is even remotely true for you and you're suffering with your physical health and your mental health, if you do not address that thing that's making you lace up your shoes, it will always be there. Whether or not you try to go through recovery or whether or not you try to address the physical stuff, if you don't address that little thing that's pushing you, it will never go away. So this is why on this channel, I don't present this information anymore about, how much you should be eating and how many times per week you should be training. I don't think you should be obsessing over your blood tests and what they say if they don't tell you anything conclusive. I think what has to happen is that you've got to address the underlying root issues before the rest of it comes together. If it's I'm missing races, I've gained weight, I've lost weight, I ate extra today, didn't eat enough today. These things are not going to fix what's here and here. This is incredibly important to me. I really want to dive into this stuff because I suffer from anxiety pretty badly. It goes up and down. I have my good days and bad days, but strangely enough, I am only now in my life realizing how much it has affected so much of my life, how much it has influenced me throughout my life, how much it has pushed me to do certain things and held me back from doing others. And I want to share with you because if you're anything like me, which if you are watching this channel, you just might be, it might help you to hear exactly how this has affected me and maybe how to recognize it in yourself. If you've watched my channel for a while, you know that I don't really share much about myself. You know some things about me, but I'm not a vlogger. I don't open up so much on YouTube, and there's reasons for that. A lot of them have to do with my anxiety. I'm terrified of this thing. It sounds really strange. I'm one of those people with high functioning anxiety, which is to say that I can film a video of myself and put it out into the world like this, but I'm awkward. I'm afraid of judgment. I have 1,000,001 different hangups, and I'm gonna tell you all about them coming up. So I'm gonna challenge us to change the conversation around what's going on around here. I'm gonna challenge us to worry about the root causes of why we do what we do and why we are who we are. We have to be brave. We have to look at our fear and face it down because it's the only way for us to grow through any of this. And by the way, just in case you're wondering, I'm not anti-sport. I'm not anti-performance. What I am is pro-you. And if you have to make hard decisions in your life to get better and to recover and to be healthy, that is something that probably no one else is going to want to talk to you about, but I do. And that's what I'm here for. So let's get ready to ask some hard questions and hear some hard answers. If you have questions and if you have specific mental health considerations or questions that you want to go through, please leave a comment below or email me at caseofthejills@gmail.com. You can schedule a mentoring call with me at caseofthejills.com also. You can follow me on Instagram. Hey, if you like this video, I always forget to do this, but if you like this video, can you please give it a thumbs up and can you please subscribe? I cannot thank you enough for watching today. I hope you have a great day wherever you are, and I will see you again soon.